And we are live. Welcome back, Northreach, to another episode of The Chopping Block. I'm Hars, and with me as always is my lovely leading lady co-host, Mini Bard, and our awesome guest for today, Vex. Wait a minute.
I like where this is going. This is
okay.
Good.
All right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did that right. So how's it going, Mini? For real though, Mini is awesome. He's our Kingdom Regent, and he's just been doing pretty much non-stop awesome stuff since he got here.
That is a bold and wild allegation, but I'll take it. I'm into it.
Oh, come on. I feel like you're selling yourself a little short here, man.
Well, I am Mini, you know. Hey!
Hey, there you go. So I guess this is going to date this a little bit as we're recording this, but as of this weekend, the new season of BoJack Horseman just came out, and me being the genius I am, decided it was a good idea to try binging it all in a single weekend. Here's some advice to our audience at home. Don't do that unless you have amazing mental coping skills.
I was gonna say, or like just a copious amount of drugs.
Or that. Because that was a roller coaster. It's one of those shows you can't really binge watch. You have to portion it, like maybe 2 to 3 episodes at a time, or you'll just feel horrible for the rest of the day.
Yeah, to clarify, when I said drugs, I meant like antidepressants.
We don't condone use of illegal substance on the chopping block. Just want to clear that up. But yeah, I guess there's a lot happening right now. We just started up on Food Fight. We just wrapped up the state fair. It's been a crazy couple of weeks, I gotta admit.
Yeah, it's been super crazy. Also just like personally, it's coincided with a bunch of buck wild stuff like fall semester start at my job and so on and so forth.
Oh yeah, that's right. Forgot you work at the university.
Yeah. I also got sort of a promotion about a week before the semester started, so that was awesome. But it's also been pretty hectic trying to kind of figure out this new job, and we're getting a huge influx of newbies, which is awesome. And
yeah,
a bunch of other projects that are going on.
I know I talked a bit about it on our last show with Deli, but yeah, I've been hearing you guys got a lot of new people recently.
Yeah, dude, we're kind of killing it. Astral Winds has been looking pretty gold here for the last couple months. We've been trying to recruit real hard and have gotten pretty lucky with a few events and some outreach on Facebook and other social media, which has kind of led to a few, the perfect newbie, the one that's super excited and willing to buy in right away, and also has a bunch of friends that no one else from Amtgard already knows.
That's really cool, actually. I'm glad to hear it. In fact, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on Tour de North, which will be happening in the next, I guess, couple months now. I don't know. It's going to be a little dated when that comes out.
Yeah, mid-reign's coming up, though. I'm definitely that's something that is forefront in my mind as Kingdom Regent, making sure we've got kind of everything lined up as an organization for that.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate that because that makes coordinating Tour de North a lot easier.
You got it.
Yeah, but oh yeah, so I guess before we get too far into this podcast, I wanted to tell a bit of a story of my last day working at the state fair, because it was interesting. But so I was working on I guess it was on the 4th. It was Labor Day. That's how I remember it. And I was working from I think it's open at a weird hours. I think it was from 10 to, I want to say 5. Yeah, 5 was my latest point on my shift. But things started wrapping up, and, Hadalin just got here, and I decided, hey, you know what, maybe I'll stick around a little later, but in the meantime, I'll go get some food, maybe look around and see some stuff. So, because, I'm kind of the reptile person, I decided, let's check out the reptile exhibit. So, I saw the cool snakes and lizards, and decided whether or not I want to get a cute picture with, the animals they had there. Sadly, I decided I didn't. But, then I ended up running into this guy who just kind of tapped on my shoulder and he's like, hey, do you mind if I ask you something? I'm like, sure, what's up? He goes, well, do you think there's a lot of cruelty going on here? I'm like, what do you mean? And he was talking about how, and mind you, I was still in my full wizard regalia and all that stuff, so I wasn't in my mundane clothes or anything. It
just means you're a figure of authority.
Well, I mean, I guess wizards do naturally have a gift of interacting with cats, owls, and snakes, so
Exactly correct.
Familiars.
Yeah, exactly. But no, anyway. So, he was like, I don't know, I just, the lizards here seem like they're okay, but the snakes and stuff, it looks like they just want to go home. But, we have enough resources available to where we could probably just, if people wanted to see these animals so badly, we could just take them there to see them themselves. And I'm just kind of looking at him, I was like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, like, I feel like just with all the cruelty going on in the world, like, why can't we just let them be free? Why can't we be in the cages? And I'm just like, hold on, what? And, like, this guy didn't exactly look like a clean, like, PETA official or anything. Like, he just kind of looked like this guy who, if he was left to his own devices, he would be the one letting animals out of the zoo for when nobody's looking. So, while he was going on this big self-righteous tangent, I was just, like, slowly backing away. It's like, yeah, okay, you do you, man. You do you. Just gonna slowly, and I just booked it.
I don't feel like he fully comprehends the words that came out of his mouth. Like, he was I feel like we have the resources to bring us to them. It's like, yeah, like the rainforest and shit? Like...
Yeah. I feel like that's the angle he was trying to go with, but I felt like it was lacking in execution.
I mean, I will gladly sign up for whatever government subsidized like Amazon rainforest trips we have going down.
Oh, dude, yeah, totally. I would totally go down to the rainforest just if anything to see all the tropical areas. You know, as long as we don't get ambushed by like the 50+ indigenous species that are living in those woods.
I had a really interesting, if I can tell another ridiculous story that happened this week that has to do with the rainforest.
That's fine. We got plenty of time on this show.
Okay. So, I read this article I always say on the internet, and what I actually mean when I say that is on Reddit. So I read this article on the internet, and they were talking about how, you know, you always see estimates where like, oh yeah, humanity's like discovered and cataloged 10% of all known species.
Yeah.
And so we're thinking like, well, how could we possibly know that we found only 10%? Like, how could we possibly know what that other giant number is?
See, I heard about that a while ago, and one of the things I saw was it wasn't like by animals, it was by species, and it said like scientists believe they've only discovered an estimate of 10% of the existing world species of spiders, and I'm just sitting there like, okay.
Yeah, well, it's crazy. I guess like a significant portion of all of the world's unique species are in the beetle family.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. But so the way that they came up with these estimates is there was this entomologist who was doing some studies down in the rainforest, and there was this village that was wanting to clear cut a big area to build like some farming space. Mm-hmm. And so they were chopping these huge trees down in the canopy, or in like the rainforest, like in the big tropical portion of it. And so he's like, why don't you guys stop? He's like, I'm gonna go ahead and do that for you, and like my team will come in and take care of all this. Like, we'll clear cut everything for you. Just let us do our thing. Yeah. And so what they would do is they would go to the base of one of these big old trees, and they would release some gas that was lighter than air, and so it would rise up and just murder everything that was up in there. And then they would put tarps down, shake the trees, and just like catalog the bajillion dead insects that fell out of it.
Wow.
And they would do that, and they would catalog and be like, wow, like 90% of these we have never been seen by a human before.
And they'll never be seen again.
And then they would go to the next tree and then murder that tree and shake it and like be like, well, 90% again, like just over and over and over again.
What?
Yeah, and so the crazy part is I was talking about this with some coworkers, and one of my coworkers like whips his phone out and calls this dude, puts him on speakerphone, and he's like, hey Jim, this is Mike. You're an entomologist, right? Can you validate the story? And he was all about it. This guy was like the like Bill Nye of bugs. He was so excited.
I like
100%
that.
legit. Like, that's a real thing that science did for us.
Wow, that's something, Mini. I did not expect that today. Oh man, that's... You know, when I started our episode and I was talking to Vex about how excited I was to start this today, I didn't think this was going to be one of our topics of conversation, but I'm really glad we're getting into it.
Bugs are cool, man. Science in general is pretty dope.
Yeah. Especially when it's about animals. Animals are cool.
So that brings up an interesting, like, nomenclature thing.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions that you had jokingly asked in the Icefire Bay page was, are hot dogs technically sandwiches? Which
I fully believe
they absolutely are.
I fully agree to that statement. Now, I do get the occasional slippery slope argument of who goes to a sandwich shop and says, "Hey, you know what I want? I want a hot dog," or who goes to a hot dog stand and saying, "Hey, you know what I want? Get me a sandwich."
Yeah, I mean that's totally fair, and the people that do that are jerks. But my question was going to be like, I wonder if you asked most people if they considered bugs to be animals, like insects to be animals. I bet they would say no.
You know, I kind of understand that, mostly because, I guess when people think of animals, they think of, like, fish or mammals or birds. You don't really think much on bugs.
Are like, insects part of the, like, Animalia kingdom?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, they are?
Sweet. I mean, I don't know. That was a legit question. That was not rhetorical.
Well,
I mean, they're not vegetables, so.
that's true. I mean, they're sentient.
Oh, I didn't realize there were only 2 kingdoms. See, I'm not a scientist. I'm just a different kind of nerd.
I think there's like 3 or 4, like, because I know there's one for like decomposers and for I feel like I'm on a completely different wavelength than what we're actually supposed to be talking about. Like, there's Animalia, there's vegetation, there's decomposer. No, wait, no. I think I found it now. How did we get on this?
I don't.
But
We're talking about snakes and stuff.
That's right. Well, maybe we should, I don't know. I kind of like where this topic's going, but do you want to backpedal this back to make it more Amtgard related?
We could definitely rewind a little bit.
Okay. So, I guess to sort of get into it, we could go, let's go back to our question segment, because as usual, I have Vex be our hype man for posting our guest announcements, and we're gonna take a look at some of the questions we got for you. But before we do, I did have one question that I just asked everybody. What was your experience like at Clan?
Oh man, Clan was pretty cool. I had some pretty interesting stuff building up, going into Clan.
Oh, yeah.
And it was my second year. So I was super excited because the first year was definitely just going to a convention of any sort for the first time. There's so much stuff going on and you feel like you're missing out, regardless of what you're doing. Even if you're having a blast, you're like, oh man, but there was this other thing.
Mm-hmm. That's my biggest fear about going to Clan is if I end up going there, I just feel like I'm just gonna get so overwhelmed that I'm gonna miss 3/4 of everything that's happening.
Yeah, and it can be pretty overwhelming in general, just the type and amount of people. Nerds, when you get them in groups that big, get pretty jazzed up about stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But then it's just a big sensory overload, it's between 90 and 100 degrees, just crazy stuff going on all the time. It's a big change for folks, especially from Alaska.
Definitely, yeah. I could believe it.
So anyway, this year when I went to Clan, I was pretty excited. I had a couple of goals, and one of them was just to spend literally as much time fighting as I possibly could. I've kind of schmoozed and made friendos with some sword knights and stuff like that, and been just other people in general, and trying to get involved more in Amtgard on the national level. And so I had some. Sorry, go ahead.
I was about to say, yeah, I noticed I ended up getting some very passionate cries out when I was posting the actual schedule for our guest lineup about how I didn't call you a squire, because in all honesty, I didn't know you were appointed as a squire recently.
Yeah, sup, God.
So you're a Sane Squire?
Yeah, and so that was kind of the interesting part. I had heard some I don't know. So I have no idea if this is a faux pas to talk about. So I'm just gonna do it because I'm not a huge fan of weird secret Illuminati Skulls Club stuff. But I'd heard Some talk that Goldcrest was maybe interested in talking to me about some sort of belt family thing. But I'd been thinking about kind of that stuff a lot because I've talked a lot with Goldcrest and with people like Randall, and I'd had some pretty long conversations with Kara Lee, my wife, Mickey, for those of you that know her through Amtgard.
Mm-hmm.
And Deli and stuff like that about what would be if I had the choice between being squired to say a Goldcrest or a Randall or one of those just pillars of Amtgard,
right?
Or a sword knight, which one do you pick? And so I spent a lot of time kind of like internalizing that and trying to figure it out. And so anyway, I was pretty excited when it all kind of like went down. I've been spending the first couple of days fighting a bunch, talking with Sir Sane and Sir Anatole, who are two warlord sword knights in the Wheel Company.
Ooh.
And I had been like asking a lot of questions and trying to get as much information, just like raw knowledge as I could, because I knew I wasn't gonna be able to process it all there, but I hoped that I could retain enough and remember it that when I got back up home, I could really sort of like try to catalog it and go through like what would be useful. And one of the questions that I asked the Saint is, I was like, yeah, I really want to spend more time picking Sir Anatole's brain, because Sir Anatole and Sir Shion were in a very similar situation to Alaska, where they were Amtgard-wise very isolated from other parks, and didn't really have anyone else that was there that was a super-duper high-level fighter that wanted to teach them all about this stuff. And so they had to kind of go through the stuff that we're going through right now, where we're trying to find stuff that works for us and not kind of pigeonhole ourselves, or not like train yourself to just beat this one guy.
Trying to find a niche, sort of?
Yeah. And just be able to like develop skills that are applicable to all fighting, not just like me trying to constantly whoop Delhi or me trying to constantly whoop Jaga or something. Like I need to be able to beat all of the people. And so he was, I think, kind of like excited by that like train of thought, and was like, I want to be part of that, because Sir Sane is from here. Like Alaska is his home. So that was, anyway, so I was super excited. That was a super long story, but I'm pretty jazzed up about it, so.
And honestly, that's awesome. I didn't know Sir Sane was actually from Alaska. That's really cool.
Yeah.
He's from Nikiski, right?
Yep, he's from Nikiski.
Okay, because I vaguely remember talk about like one of the nights we had here, and I couldn't that was from there, and I couldn't remember if it was Sir Goldcrest or Sir Sane, because I remember it was one of the two we had at Dungeon Crawl last year, or not last year, but the year before.
Yeah, I've been trying real hard. Like Sane got a new job recently. He's a geologist, and
really?
So I was like, "Oh man, you got to come back up to Alaska. We got all kinds of rocks and stuff, and like volcanoes and like
that's the way to put it,
things
definitely.
with stuff like other science geology words that I learned a few years ago in school." And he was actually pretty excited. Like he was like, "I would love to come back up to Alaska," but his wife, the incredibly talented and wonderful and nicest lady in the entire world, is not super keen on crazy Alaska weather.
Yeah, okay, that's fair, I guess. But I mean, comparatively to how the rest of the lower 48's looking right now, I don't think our weather's that bad.
I know, we're not in some sort of like hurricane-ridden hellscape. We're
Or
just in, like
forest
a regular,
fires.
yeah.
But yeah, so honestly, I'd say if we pitched that to them, I think we could probably get them both up here. Just comparatively, at least.
We got rocks, we got no tornadoes.
There's that. There's definitely that. Oh god, they're in tornado country.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the like New Mexico ish region.
That's kind of tornado-y, I think.
Yeah.
I say as I haven't left Alaska in almost 5 years.
You gotta get out, gotta come clan next year.
That's the plan. That's definitely my plan. Alright.
It just really puts things in perspective. Like, it's really, if you think about the things that are cool about going to an event like Dungeon Crawl or Wolf's Cry, or Solstice War, it's that you get to hang out with the people that are super, like, all the coolest of the amtgarders always go to those, you know? And so you really get to spend time with, like, all the cool people from each park, and you're like, this is the best. It's, like, energizing. And Clan is like that, but it's all the cool people from every park.
That's awesome.
In all of Amtgard.
Yeah, it's why I'm definitely looking forward to doing it, and I'm gonna definitely make it my goal to do it next year.
Moving on to questions now. Our first one is from Abram. What does Amtgard mean to you personally?
Oh man, I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thing. Like I have this weird like mixed emotions for Amtgard. Because it certainly gets to a point if you want to kind of like contribute to Amtgard and like give back a little bit, where it becomes like work, you know.
Mm-hmm.
but like I grew up in Amtgard. Like some of my like fondest memories from when I was a wee kiddo, because I started doing Amtgard in like 2001. It was when I was from like 14 or 13 to 17 or something like that, which is just like when humans like discover who they are,
Yeah, I guess so.
That was in Amtgard, and so when I started coming back again, I felt like I kind of had like a duty to it, like to the institution, to be like, let's make sure that this is awesome for everyone. Like it was a awesome place for me to be a nerdy, awkward, like uncomfortable, unsure little human.
Yeah, I get that. I was actually kind of in a similar boat too. I think I was about 16 or 17 when I first joined Amtgard. I know I was in my teens, I know that, but yeah, I totally understand.
So yeah, I'm not sure if I actually answered Abram's question, but I don't know. Like, I feel like that's about as close to the mark as I'll be able to get.
It's kind of a broad question anyway. Like, I feel like if we asked all of our guests this on the show, we'd probably never get the same answer twice. So
yeah, for sure.
It is what it is. So this next one we actually got from Abram is what's your main class?
Oh man, that's funny. I mean, so my character's full name, if you look me up in New York, is Mini space Bard. So ostensibly Bard, I guess, like in the very literal use of the word ostensibly. But I've been playing Druid a lot recently. I think I must be getting close to 6th level in that. I can pull it up on the orc, but I'm pretty sure I'm either 4th or 5th level right now.
Well, if I do remember right, last year you did put in a pretty solid KDR for Guild Wars as the only archer, and you managed to get about 17 kills out of the entire pie of the casualties in Guild Wars last year.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I killed a significant portion of the people, but I definitely had a really good time. And so that's the other thing, is I'm also a level 6 archer, so, and I think I have a few other classes at level 2 or 3, probably assassin, monk, warrior, wizard, maybe barbarian, other classes that involve hitting people with sticks, which is a thing that I enjoy.
Sweet.
But I guess oftentimes, if you're picture Mini Bard in your head, the character, the man, the myth, the legend, I do kind of picture him with a bow. So I guess archer, I would say.
I was gonna say, you definitely established yourself as someone who uses a bow last year.
Okay, another one from Abram. What is the most awe-inspiring thing you've seen in Amtgard?
Oh, good grief. I mean, I feel like that's a super, kind of an easy, a softball now, because I can be Hadeland's knighting was pretty cool. That was, a thing that was, charged with emotion, And I think everyone there, felt something, happening inside of them when that was happening, because they were able to, bear witness to how passionate all of the people that were standing up there were about it. Hadeland and, Randall and, Goran and Azrael, they were just all about it, and it's really hard to not be infected by that.
Mm-hmm.
But, other moments like that, I remember when I was standing up front when Rosedath got his Lord title, and we were standing there giving him our gifts from each park, and he was crying, and I was just it was hard for me. I was felt like I was going to start bawling, because it just meant so much to him. And then the last gift that he got was, of course, his cloak, and his wife had made it for him, and she had been sneakily making it over the course of weeks or something like that in their house, and he had no idea. And she walked up behind him without him knowing who it was, and put the cloak around his neck, and he turned around and of course saw who it was, and she was just smiling up at him, and she kind of smoothed his cloak out with her hands and stuff, and gave him a kiss on the cheek. It was just I died,
I remember that. That was really sweet.
It's really hard to not be awe-inspired by things like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so our next one we got is from Deli, and that is, I always like it when we get this question, but how do you handle burnout?
Poorly. Honestly, I mean, I think most people do. I think that the key to overcoming most sort of like intrapersonal issues, like that are all up inside of you, and not necessarily a result of like external factors, although they might seem that way. But I think that a lot of times the silver bullet to that is introspection. So just being super self-aware, and trying to kind of like stop and like assess yourself a lot. Like when you start feeling like that, like you feel like you're frustrated with Amtgard, or you know, when it's like, okay, well, Saturday Amtgard's coming up, like I don't really want to go. Like when I start feeling like that, I like stop and I say like, why? Like what's happening? Am I frustrated by some project I've been working on? Am I just not feeling well? Am I tired? And generally speaking, being able to stop and do that and say like, what is it that's making me not want to go there, or do that thing or participate in that, is just stop doing whatever that part is. So, I mean, sometimes that's not an option. So if you're an officer, you have sort of a responsibility. I mean, we're certainly volunteers, but like I've made a commitment, you know, and I've said like, I'm going to do this for a year or 6 months or however long. And when the passion runs out, I think, and it doesn't matter what your pursuit is, whether it's lifting weights or running or painting or Amtgard or whatever, when the passion runs out, the thing that has to replace that is discipline. And you just keep doing it until the passion comes back.
It's kind of like, not to bring this full circle or anything, but I know earlier we were talking about BoJack Horseman, but there's like a quote that I really like from that. That's just, it gets easier every day, but you got to do it every day, and that's what makes it hard. But it gets easier. Yeah,
for sure, 100%. So yeah, I handle burnout poorly, I think, personally. I mean, like just from like a track record perspective, I have not done super well. But I'm trying to be a lot more thoughtful about it, so hopefully I will be handling it better in the future. Most of those offices, with the exception of the Monarch itself, their power that they have is delegated to them. And so, you know, if the champion's like, look, man, I really need to take this week off because I am just like, I'm getting wrecked by school or whatever thing is going on, like the Monarch can handle that, you know, and that Monarch can just as easily delegate that authority and responsibility onto somebody else.
Right.
So it's not the end of the world if someone can't go. You just need to communicate, you know, so folks know what's going on.
Exactly. Communication is pretty much the best weapon when it comes to being an Amtgard officer.
For sure.
Another deli question. What is your favorite thing to get from the deli? I'm assuming this is the store.
I honestly don't know.
He capitalized it, so I'm going to assume it's the Royal Deli. It's like the Royal We. So my favorite thing to get from like the deli, like if I was going to Fred's, is probably, oh man, I was gonna say chicken strips, but they make this really delicious, like one of the deli meats that they have is this like Tuscan turkey. It's just freaking spectacular, and that with like butter queso is just makes the best sandwiches.
I believe it.
So good. Okay, anyway. My favorite thing to get from the deli with a capital D, he's a good sounding board, man, because he has, sometimes I think without having put a lot of like thought into it, but has like, he has an opinion about all of the things. Like he just has like a very like strong sense of like self and like is kind of centered. And so when you ask him like, what do you think about this? Like he's generally able to tell you, he's able to answer that question, which is not something that a lot of people can do. Because sometimes they'll be like, I don't know, I just don't care about that. Even if Deli doesn't care about it, he probably still has an opinion on it.
Right.
And boy, will he tell you. And that's great though, like it's just really, really good.
That is a solid backhand compliment if I ever heard one.
I wasn't bad. I mean, like he just like hell yeah, I mean if you ask him for his opinion on a thing, he will give you his opinion.
I'm just messing with you.
Yeah, no, I mean I don't like, Deli is like practically lived at my house, so I feel like I have some discretion when it comes to verbal abuse.
No, that's fair. All right. So this next one, as per usual episode, is a traditional question we've been getting the last couple episodes, and that is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love food? Written, of course, by Boot.
So I knew this question was going to come, and so I spent some time thinking about it. So 1 is a person that I just, like, I find repellent. Like, I just don't want to think about them. 5 is like your average knucklehead, just a human.
Mm-hmm.
And like 10 would be like Mickey, solid 10. So I feel like I like Boot a lot. I might like some other people more than Boot, but less than my wife, so they're probably like a 9. Maybe like Sane is pretty dope.
Mm-hmm.
Other like famous important people like Elon Musk, pretty awesome. My mom, that sort of thing. But I think Boot's like a solid like 7.5 or an 8, which is pretty good. Like, that's not bad. Like, that's definitely many notches above like most people that I work with, to be honest.
Well, you can choose your friends, you can't choose your coworkers.
I mean, I can, because I'm their boss, but
Okay, yeah,
it's
that's
frowned
fair.
upon.
So our next question is also from Deli. And I'm pretty sure that this was created after the amount of thought he put into a similar question he received
Mm-hmm.
when we interviewed him. So, if each park's top 5 entered a deathmatch, each team starting with an X-Acto knife, a 6-foot ladder, 20 feet of hemp rope, a copy of the V8 rulebook, and a football helmet, who would win? Who'd die first? And what would your strategy be?
And Ray iterates, and how willing would you be to participate in said match if this question were not, in fact, theoretical?
So, I truly, from the bottom of my heart, hope that both of you have seen the timeless classic movie, Billy Madison.
Yep.
I have.
So there's this scene where he's on this trivia show, and he gives the stupidest answer in the world, and the principal says the following. De La Hiva. What you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I've ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent question were you even close to anything that can be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Oh man,
So-
I don't know what's better, that answer or the fact that you just had that on the ready.
So, now to sort of like partially answer that question, like what do you, like? So they start with that. Is there more stuff there? Are we trapped in a small room? Like there are too many variables.
I almost want to say it'd be like a Hunger Games scenario where you just kind of find more resources as you go.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. If that's the case, I don't know. I don't feel like I know like all the park's top 5s well enough to like say like, well, you know, Hars has excellent mapping skills or roping skills or laddering skill. Like I'm not really sure.
I was about to say I'm not a good mapper, but I'd say I know a thing or two about rope tying.
Yeah, and I guess like none of those other things seem particularly helpful, like based on amtgard skills. Like, you know, you don't even start with like a stick with which to hit people.
Okay, that's fair, I guess.
Now, to Ray's question, which is, would you be willing to participate in said match if it were not theoretical? It really depends on what juice is. So, like, to determine whether it's worth the squeeze, man. Because I'm not gonna get stabbed a bunch or like cut with X-Acto knives if like the prize is like my second Smith, right?
Right, there you go. I mean, I don't know, like a big officer deathmatch or something. I think that'd be kind of a cool thing to set up.
But yeah, if it were just like a straight up officer deathmatch and like it were important, like like we were required to participate, yeah, I guess so. Like I'm a big, strong, like virile, strapping young lad. Like I'll fight some nerds.
No, I mean that's what you do every week. So, what's one more day?
Right?
All right. Well, enough about that one. So, this next one we got from Ray. Enough about that crazy question. This next one we got from Ray is, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
So, I saw this question, and I've wondered that many times myself, and I had wanted to get a Tootsie Pop and do it myself, and then I just thought of the agonizing tongue lacerations, so I settled for doing research instead. And man, it's all over the place. Like, it's crazy. So, like, Purdue claims that it takes an average of 364 for a human tongue simulation machine to get to the center of Tootsie Pop.
Okay, but I have to ask, what real life purposes could a human tongue simulation machine that I could say that isn't safe for work?
Here's the thing, though, is I was like, wow, that's crazy that Purdue has built a human tongue simulation machine.
I feel like that's a whole other separate discussion to have, honestly.
It goes on to talk about all these other colleges and how they used their human tongue simulation machines to test Tootsie Pop. And I was like, why? Does UAF have one? Like, have I just not seen it?
Okay.
Is it hidden away in a closet somewhere?
So, I'm gonna just say, I initially had an idea for the title of this episode, but fuck it, I'm just calling it Tongue Simulator now.
Yeah, is it part of, like, is there a state university starter pack that, like, comes with a human tongue simulation machine, a bunch of, like, shitty lanyards?
Can you like, switch it out to a bunch of different tongues? Like, you have the lizard tongue, or a human tongue, or like a whale tongue?
That's a really good question. Like, is it exclusively human tongues, or is it modular? Like
a utility tongue, if you will?
Yeah. So anyway, 364 with a human tongue simulation machine. However, Purdue's real-life human students did it in 252 on average. University of Michigan says 411 with a robot. They were too cowardly to attempt it themselves. And then apparently a bunch of middle school kids did the same thing, and they also, for some reason, had like licking robots, and said that it took 144. But their number is like pretty far off the standard like thing, so I'm middle schoolers are terrible creatures, so I'm just assuming they messed it all up. This
was a very seemingly simple question, but I think all this has really done is just make me have more questions than when we started.
But
I don't think I want the answer.
Plot thickens, Hars.
Oh yeah.
The Journal of Fluid Mechanics says it takes an estimated 1,000.
I think I remember hearing about
NYU
this, actually.
Says 2,500. Like, it's all over the place. Like, there's no consensus in the scientific community.
Well, I guess in the immortal words of the late great Tootsie Pop commercials, where the owl just acts like a dick to this kid, the world may never know.
We'll never know.
Okay, we got a serious one from Deli this time, and that is, what projects are you currently working on right now?
Oh, good grief. Well, I late joined a math class, so I'm catching up on that.
Mm-hmm.
I have, this sort of new job thing, so I'm figuring that out. As far as amtgarders, I also have the UAF Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Club. And so got a bunch of grappling and stuff like that, and some tournaments coming up and other things going on. As far as amtgarders projects, in addition to being the Kingdom Regent, I'm also the Astral Winds Guildmaster of Newbies. And so that illustrious and delightful position basically makes me the, bright smiling face of Astral Winds. And also means that I get to talk to people and, give them all kinds of cool garb and equipment and stuff like that. So, I've probably made, another 10 swords over the course of the last 2 months. I made 2 more shields. One of them is this really cool, wood-grained plastidip thing with the Celtic symbol Awen on it, which
Sweet.
is the, symbol for, bardic inspiration, which is just Carolee found it, or Mickey found it. It's just the coolest symbol ever. Yeah, so, I've got 5, like 10-foot or 8-foot like band shop poles sitting on my porch, so I'm going to be making a bunch of pole arms for newbies, and I've got about 30 modular arrowheads, most of the way done, and they'll be done by next weekend.
Cool.
And then I'm going to make some PVC bows, and we'll just have so much cool stuff for all the newbies that have been showing up to use.
All right. So the last one we got that was given to us was from Ray, and that is, where do you see the Kingdom of Northreach in 5, 10, and 15 years? And what will your direct actions be that are a part of that progress?
I thought about this question a lot too. 5 years, and I hope sooner than that. I would like to see us be like a pretty rock solid 501c3 organization. I feel like it's going to take us a year to get it, you know what I mean? And then probably a year or two before we get really comfortable with the tools that gives us. But man, it would be so awesome for us to be able to say like, hey, Alaska Airlines, will you give us some free plane tickets down to New Mexico for Clan or to Illinois for Keep? And then just sort of have like a raffle or something like that, just like give them away to our members and like be able to fly people down to things like that for free, or like fly people down from Fairbanks to Wolf's Cry.
That'd be awesome.
Would be so dope.
I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, and I think as far as like further out into the future from there, I think if we can get to that point in 5 years, I'll be just really, really happy. 10, 15 years, like, gosh, that's so far from now. I don't even know, like, what I'll be doing in 10 or 15 years.
That's literally twice as long as I've been in Amtgard now.
I know. So I'd love to see, like, I think there's some stuff. There's some stuff like happening at a national level or an international level, whatever you want to call it, that's really interesting, and I think Phoenix League is one of those. I'd love to participate in that a little bit more. I think that Amtgard in general could benefit from maybe like a better like online / social media type presence. That doesn't necessarily mean like just doing crazy ads and stuff like that, but just like a more consistent like front face. And I'd like to like help out with that kind of stuff too. And I think that like if we do all of that and set the example up here in Northreach by like doing cool things like Phoenix League videos and like digital bring-it-ins and so on and so forth, like people recognize quality, which is why we're a kingdom now. Mm-hmm. And so, if I can help champion those sort of things up here, I think it'll be awesome. I would also say, like, I would really like to see us be much better at fights, just in general, like partially selfishly, but also because I think it's really cool. I want more, like, really awesome people to fight with and train with.
I definitely agree. I hear our stick game isn't as good as the lower 48 parks.
No, it's not even close. Like I think our regular, like our battle game play is much stronger because we've been using the V8 rule set for a super long time, and we have a lot of people that are super passionate about the rules and sort of like power gaming and stuff.
Right.
But our stick game is deplorable. Honestly, like you go out like to the ditch line, it's just
I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying, dang, you're throwing some major shade.
I'm terrible too. Shade. Like our awful fact. It's just science.
It's bearing the light. Like, that's the opposite of shade.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Shedding some light, which casts shade.
And so I really love, I enjoy fighting. Like it's something that I've been doing, like outside of Amtgard. Like I've done like boxing and like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is basically like wrestling and grappling type stuff for, over a decade now. Like I really enjoy that competitive nature. And I pick that stuff up reasonably well. And I also love teaching, so I'd love to be able to kind of bring that knowledge, up here.
Yeah, I would definitely love to see something like that up here again.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. We've talked about, putting in like an SKBC bid, which is Sword Knight Boot Camp, for those that don't know what that is. And basically, kingdoms put in bids with the Amtgard International Board of Directors, and SKBC is basically just a 3 to 5 day fighting convention. It's cross gaming technically, so it's not actually Amtgard, and so they have folks that are there from Bell and Dag and other places, but it's just the pinnacle of foam fighting conference sort of.
I heard about that, and I would honestly love to have SKBC up here, because I totally need to up my stick game too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, everyone does, and if you ask most Sword Knights, they will tell you the same thing. It's really interesting, having been down to Clan a couple of times, and I spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos of various warlords and sword knights and stuff that are constantly posting things on YouTube. But it's really incredible, the depth of the warlord tier fighters. Where we think Delhi's good for Alaska, and Delhi's a 4th level or 5th level Order of the Warrior in the lower 48, and that's not even. You get up to warlords, and then you have people like Anatole and Brennan and gosh, I can't think of his name. Arthon. Sorry, I kept wanting to say Harry, which is his real name, but who's been fighting for 22 years and is still a relevant, nationally competitive fighter. It's absolutely staggering the
That's
amount
awesome.
of knowledge that they have.
Yeah, I never really think about how intricate it really is. I just kind of am under the mentality of hit them a lot of times and then you win. But then, when you see, all the... I've been to a couple not SKBCs, but, when we have Sword Knights up here to, do small lessons with us, I never realized that so much goes into something that seems so little.
Yeah, man, and it's really crazy, too, because I feel the closest, or, the most analogous, other fighty type thing to Amtgard foam sword fighting nonsense is just straight up, Western-style boxing.
Pretty much, yeah.
But it's so much more difficult than boxing. From imagine if when 2 boxers walked into the ring, their arms were 3 feet longer than they were normally, and if you punched someone, the fight was over. You just had to have one clean punch, and that was it.
Okay, so that put a very different image in my head, and I'm kind of loving what I'm looking at.
But it's crazy to think about in that perspective. We have to be really, really technical and fight a much more defensive fight. And I think that I talked about this with Sane a little bit. I think that in 5 or 10 years, Amtgard fighting at the super high level is going to be much safer. It's going to be much shorter, much tighter, lots of chops, and far fewer big sort of Hail Mary throws, because people know that you can't kill someone if you're dead, and so you need to stay alive first. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting real nerdy about fighty stuff, and so
No,
that's
totally
where
fine.
I think it's gonna go.
So I have one question for you. If you could think back, why did you go with Mini Bard and not Mega Bard?
It was not a choice that was given to me. So, I'm 30 years old now. I didn't go through puberty until I was 22. Which was pretty cool, for those of you that haven't tried it. But when I started doing Amtgard, I know, it was a good thing. I was able to grow a beard, and I started looking like a grown up in terms of muscle and stuff like that, so that was pretty cool. But prior to that, I was just a little wastrel looking fella. And when I started doing Amtgard when I was 13, I was so tiny. I was just the weeest little dude. And there was one other guy. His name is Bart. His Amtgard name was Ramiel. He was a member of the Fallen Ones, which was the fighting company that Sir Gorin and Dame Astriana and Ramiel were all in, along with a bunch of other super old Amtgarders Ato / Rhapsody and Nalarian, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho, and Ramiel was the only person that played a bard, because Bard was really just kind of like a very silly class back then. It'd allow you to take like, there's a thing called Bardic Charm that basically lets you just like command someone to do a thing for like 60 seconds. And so it could be like literally anything. Like I would have people do like the hokey pokey, or like make sandwiches.
The days of V6 and 7.
Right, yeah. So anyway, so he was the only other person that played a Bard. I thought playing a Bard was super cool, and so I started playing a Bard, and I couldn't come up with a name for the life of me. And so people just started calling me Mini Bard as a joke. And then by the time that I had finally come up with something, which if I recall, was like Damien or something incredibly stupid like that when I was like 13. Like they were like, that's not, nah, you're just Mini Bard now. And then people just called me Mini.
Well, I mean, the way I see it, it seems like you're wearing it pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it worked out really well because now we can have like Mini Bard and Mickey Bard, and honestly, the number of GIF responses that has opened up for me on Facebook has been truly life-changing. Like, I can use so many Minnie Mouse GIFs, and they're all great.
That's awesome. I guess it's just like another Certato scenario where it just the name that was chosen for you just happens to be, you didn't realize was just going to be the best choice of your life.
Right, well, it's sort of like Monkey. Like, his story is that when he was like a little kid, whenever someone would fight him that he didn't think he could win, he would like literally climb up the nearest tree so they couldn't reach him. And everyone started calling him Monkey Boy, you know, because he was climbing in trees constantly, and then it just shortened to Monkey.
Oh, I actually did not know that. That's interesting to know.
Yeah, according to him, it was usually like expletive Monkey Boy, you know, and not just Monkey Boy, but which frankly, it's still basically that, just minus the boy at the end.
Fair enough, I guess. Well, I guess that's it for this week's episode. I just wanted to say thank you all for watching at home, and thank you, Minnie, for being on our show. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, of course. I hope everyone has a super duper awesome Amtgard, and I will see you the next time I am down there in the lower part of the state.
Well, hopefully we'll be seeing you a lot sooner because of Tour de North. But for those of you at home, thank you all for watching again. And tune in next week where we'll be giving a bit of love to Lupin Moon, where we'll be interviewing their monarch, Abram. Until then, you've been watching The Chopping Block. I'm Hars, and this is Vex, signing out.
Good night.
Later.